Hi there, and welcome back to the Keeping a Breast podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Simmons, and today I have with me a woman who needs no introduction. I have Dr. Veronique Desollier, better known as Dr. V, the breast cancer conqueror, and we have spent the better part of the last year recording a summit. And our summit is going to go live next week, which is super exciting because it was a labor of love. I know for both of us, it was a huge commitment and a huge undertaking, but one that I think was really important.
Absolutely. This is something that I've been wanting to do for years, but I did not want to take it on my own.
Yeah.
As you know, it's such a commitment of time and but it's been awesome. I mean, the speakers that we've gathered together, what I'm most excited about is that there are some breakthroughs concerning breast cancer, and women out there need to hear about these breakthroughs. And so the speakers that we interviewed, some professionals, some women who've gone through the healing journey and are now no evidence of disease. And, they're thriving, they're doing well. And their testimony as to breast cancer does not need to be a death sentence. It does not have to be anything that you fear, that if you follow the process, your body can heal.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that you said so beautifully and eloquently when we started off doing this, is that you wanted to give women an opportunity to put their diagnosis behind them and to go on living the rest of their lives rather than being defined by this disease and being a victim of this disease, instead creating an opportunity to live your best life. And so I would love it if you would just start by sharing your story, because it is so important and it is so motivational.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm just like any of you that may be out there listening. I did not ever think breast cancer would be part of my life, but 23 years into my practice as a chiropractor, I was in the shower and I was doing a breast exam and, bam, felt that lump that changed the course of my professional and personal life forever. And I chose at the time not to do anything conventional wise as far as treatments. So I did everything naturally. And after 2 years, I was able to say by the scans and the blood work and everything that, there was no evidence of disease, that I had healed. So I had the idea, and several of my colleagues were kind of edging me on, you should share this story because other women need to hear about this. So in 2012, I threw up a website, had no idea what I was doing. And really, I mean, I just thought, okay, let's see what happens. And before I knew it, women were emailing me from literally all over the world. And I started coaching women and teaching them the process that I used. And, I had to sit down when I first discovered that lump. I had to really ask myself, how could somebody like me develop breast cancer? Because I thought I was doing everything right. Ate organic before organic was in style, and exercised, and, had home births, breastfed the children, you name it, I did it. So I wanted a process that I could follow so that I could feel like I was checking off all the boxes. And that's how I came up with the 7 essential system. It's a step-by-step process that if you follow, you never have to fear breast cancer or any disease for that matter. So fast forward 9 years, I'm the breast cancer conqueror, and I'm feeling terrible. I'm stressed. I'm working from sun up to sundown, helping women to.
Which is so common, because when you are that provider for other people, and I mean your patients, I mean your family, I mean your husband, I mean, when you are that provider, you put yourself last.
Yeah. And that's a trait of women with breast cancer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We always put everybody first. So I found myself with another lump in my breast, and I created the perfect storm for breast cancer to show up again. I wasn't sleeping well. My hormones were off. I had some dental issues that needed to be addressed. And so, this time it was a little bit more difficult for me because I had a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. Here I am, the breast cancer conqueror, and yet, I'm facing it again. Does the system really work? Am I a fraud? What's going on? So I just really changed how I lived in my life. Number one was the first thing. So I cut back on coaching. I didn't coach one-on-one anymore. I trained coaches to do that. And I really cut back on my work, and I allowed myself the time to do what I needed to do to really heal my body on all levels and really dive deeper into the 7 essentials. So it took me 3 years to heal, and that was 2018. So here we are, 6 years. So it's going to be 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And you are testimony to this can be done, but it takes that level of recognition that because so many times people come to me and say the same exact things that you said, like, I'm doing everything right. How could this happen? And I know when I was on my own healing journey, like it takes a lot of humility to say, maybe I'm just not doing the things that are right for me. And what appears to be the picture of health isn't always. And we all have to be honest with ourselves in saying, like, I'm not doing the things that are right for me.
Yeah.
And it's not about blame or shame, right? We're not torturing ourselves saying we caused this. We're saying, here's an opportunity. I have an opportunity presented to me, and I can choose. I can choose to stay on this same path and roll the dice on what's going to happen, or I can choose to change it. And I love your book because it really does give people the path to healing, right? And it's so empowering. And that, again, is why we decided to do this summit, because there are breast cancer breakthroughs. It's called the Breast Cancer Breakthrough Summit because there are breast cancer breakthroughs, and there are so many opportunities that are not discussed within the confines of conventional medical treatment. So,
Exactly.
when you get a diagnosis from a surgeon or the radiologist or whoever gives you your diagnosis, you're put on a track. You go see the surgeon, go see the medical oncologist, go see the radiation oncologist, and never are they really talking about how to empower yourself for healing. They're not really talking about healing at all.
Right. It's the fight against the cancer that's in your body. That thing, they're not looking at your whole body, your whole self, and what is the root cause? What allowed this cancer to show up in the first place?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. And you were in conventional medicine for 20 some years as a very famous, really good breast surgeon. So you have seen both sides of the coin. And, I really applaud you for embracing, the journey and being able to offer a whole lot more to women than just what conventional medicine had to offer.
Yeah. But it was the same fear for me. I mean, it's scary to walk outside of those lines. And I know so many women are terrified not having surgery or not having chemo or saying no to the hormonal drugs, saying no to radiation. It's very scary. And women get not only internal pressure, but a lot of external pressure, right? Your doctor says you're not doing the right thing. Your best friend says you're not doing the right thing. Your husband says you're not doing the right thing. There's a lot of pressure to conform to those conventional medical treatments. And many times in the summit, it comes up, we are not saying no one should do conventional medical treatment, right? That is not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that there is so much more. And the truth is that health doesn't happen inside a doctor's office, a hospital, an operating room, a chemotherapy suite, a radiation suite. Health happens at home. And the only person that can make you healthy is you. And whether or not you choose to do those conventional therapies is up to you, but that we wanted everyone to know that there's so much more.
Yes.
So I know I went through the list of my favorite talks because there are like 50 some of them. So there's a lot. And I hope that people watch them all because I think that, they wouldn't be there if they didn't have value. And I really, when I was looking through the list, I was like, how am I going to choose just 5? Because they were all so, so, so good. But how did you do with choosing your 5? And who would you like to highlight first?
So it was a tough choice. So I chose personal stories and I chose some professional stories as well. So I want to start with Tara Coyote. She started off as a client of ours. I don't even know how many years ago, and she was doing really well with natural healing, and that was her goal. She wanted to heal breast cancer naturally, and she had a turn of events in her life with her horse sanctuary and a lot of financial stress, and she had to sell her horse farm, and it was very, very traumatic and stressful for her. So guess what happened?
Yeah, of course.
The cancer took off in a raging fire. She ended up moving to Hawaii, where she was originally from, and where her father was from as well. And they have a very different approach. I mean, they still have conventional medicine, but they have a kind of a milder aloha type of approach to healing. And it got so bad. She had stage 4. I mean, her hips were breaking, her pelvis was cracking, lungs, I mean, everywhere. She couldn't even breathe. And they basically gave her a choice. You can go to hospice or you can do chemo. And we believe that the chemotherapy that we've chosen for you is going to help. So she chose to face her demons and face her fears. And, fast forward several years later, she has now no evidence of disease. And so to me, that's testimony that, there are times when, for whatever reason, the cancer is very aggressive and keeps, it doesn't respond as well as we'd like it to. And so that's where conventional medicine comes in. It slows down the fire. It can, some of the drugs they use can really help give your body some reprieve and heal. So, now she's written several books, and she's, teaching other women about how to face their demons and to have a balanced approach, that it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it can be both.
Yeah. And I think the important part of that is that, I mean, listen, when you have an overwhelming tumor load, right? And your proverbial sink is overflowing, you're going to need help, right? Your immune system, which is the thing that keeps cancer intact, is totally overwhelmed at that point. It needs support. So chemotherapy in that instance is mopping up the floor, right? But unless you figure out why your sink is overflowing and turn off that faucet, it's never going to be a long-term solution. So I think of the conventional treatments as the or. Sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. But the personal work that you're going to do is always your and, right? I think you have to do the personal work. And then maybe there are times when the conventional routes are necessary. Maybe there are times when they are advantageous. But the question of why the cancer is there has to be answered. And it's not always an easy answer. For some people, you had a death in the family, you got divorced, you had to move. Like, for some people, it's obvious what threw off your balance. And for other people, it's much more subtle. And I think that that's why I liked Sharon Still's talk so much. I interviewed Sharon. Dr. Stills is just a brilliant practitioner. And she talked about cancer grows where cancer is invited. And really looking at the environment that is being created and asking, what is that environment inviting? Because if that is an environment that's filled with stress, or you have microinfections because you have ongoing issues with your mouth, or parasites, or unresolved trauma, you have to think about what that environment is inviting. And you can see cancer as your opportunity to either change that environment and create one that welcomes health and and um, the feelings that you want to have, or you can choose to stay in that place, but that it is a choice. And I was just communicating with someone this morning who said that, you know, she's really worried about recurrence, and her life is filled with fear and sadness. And all I could think of is you are paving the path to recurrence.
Mm-hmm.
And that we all can choose to see life differently. And even if you do have a recurrence, like your story, even if you do have a recurrence, that again is not a death sentence unless you decide that that's your death sentence. And
Exactly.
we can again choose to realign with our values.
Yeah. And if you understand what cancer is, what cancer is not, and you understand about, the medical approach is to kill the cancer, get rid of the tumor, but there's the underlying root of those circulating tumor cells and breast cancer stem cells, that those need to be addressed as well, along with the lifestyle and the mindset. I mean, there's no reason to fear. And I love that, because I see women come to us and they're like deer in headlights. But after they understand, they go through the program and the training, there's no fear anymore. And they're very diligent about what they need to do to prevent a recurrence. So nice to see that.
Yeah. And I think what you give them is purpose, right? And we know that purpose drives life.
Yes.
So it's amazing. Who's next on your list?
And so I chose Dr. Isaac Elias, brilliant,
He's amazing.
brilliant doctor. His heart it just shines through. And he's the creator of the modified citrus pectin from Econugenics.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done clinical studies with institutions like Harvard and Columbia to show that integrative therapies are very, very beneficial. But one thing that really struck me, and this is something that I learned about during my second healing journey, was an inflammatory marker called galactin-3 that is a huge factor in suppressing your immune system and causing metastasis and growth. So when I learned about that, and I learned that modified citrus pectin can actually tamper down that inflammatory marker, it was such a game changer for me. So this is something that we recommend to all our clients, whether you're preventing or you're in the journey or you're in maintenance, you've got to really keep those inflammatory markers down. And, of course, his story is how he discovered it and why he does what he does. And he has such a heart of gold, and he has a very balanced approach, and he sees the emotional aspect as such an important part of the healing.
Absolutely. Is galactin-3 something that you measure in all your patients?
We recommend it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I check on myself about once a year,
Mm-hmm.
now that I know that it's down, but definitely it's an important marker.
And you follow it along with other inflammatory markers.
Correct.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, my second person that I picked was Dr. Naisha Winters.
Oh yeah, love her.
I just love her. I love her energy. I just see her face, and it just brings up such a beautiful feeling in my soul. Like, she's just gorgeous in every sense of the word. And I'm going to use a Hebrew word because there's no English word that really says it better, but her neshama, her soul, her kind of being is just so beautiful and bright, and it just makes me smile. And she said something so funny, because she has a similar story to yours in that she's had repeated bouts of cancer. And, when you have this happen in conventional medicine, it's very off-putting for providers. It makes them very nervous. And so they tend to have a very negative response to it, like they give up hope.
Mhm.
And, after one of her bouts, her response was like, well, I'm still alive, so now what? And she said that ringing the bell is really just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
And it's after you complete all of that conventional treatment that the healing really starts. And she told me that she thinks fasting probably saved her life, which is interesting because we really didn't talk much about fasting until a few years ago. I mean, I can remember being interviewed on my couch in my home just before COVID about, what does a cancer doctor think about fasting? And it's really in the last 3, 4, 5 years that the information around fasting has exploded. But it is really, I think that it is going to define the next decade of care, not only in the cancer realm, but in the aging realm. Because, we're not going to prevent aging, but we're certainly going to accelerate it unless we start to live more physiologically in circadian rhythm with how we ate in an evolutionary way. And we were actually designed for long periods of fasting. And the truth is that we are meant to operate as well in a fasted state as we are in a fed state, right? Like we couldn't come out of the cave in the morning and see the saber-tooth tiger and say, can you just hold on a minute because I haven't had my breakfast, right? And when did we hunt? We hunted in a fasted state. We gathered in a fasted state. I mean, we are meant to perform well in a fasted state. And overeating has probably been quite detrimental and responsible for a majority of our chronic disease.
Yeah, her book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, was a great book. I had the privilege of being coached by her one-on-one before she stopped doing all of that.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
so I learned a lot from her, and she's become a dear friend. So she's
She is an amazing lady. And I do
yeah,
think that everyone should read her book, The Metabolic
absolutely.
Approach to Cancer, because I think it was, I mean, it's brilliant. And I think people really need to understand what is happening in the body so that they can correct it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
who else impressed you?
so I picked Bethany Webb. She wrote the book My Guru Cancer. And the reason I picked her is because I love her attitude. When you read her book, she really has such a beautiful mindset about the journey and the treatments. And she did a lot of the work by Byron Katie. And so she used a lot of that. And she was moving along really well. She was feeling great. The doctor said you're cancer free. But then she started having some chronic back pain. And for months and months, she kept asking questions. And they said, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. Finally, she insisted on a scan. And sure enough, she now had stage 4 lesions in her spine, liver, and abdomen. So she says, because I was trained to find love and beauty in all events of life, I really, took that in. She says, I allowed myself to feel the emotions. There were times when there was fear and, the what ifs, but I took control of my mind and my feelings and was able to go through that and ask myself the right questions. And so the good news is she's another example, now, and, no evidence of disease. But she had to do some extra work and dive a little bit deeper. Now she understands what allowed the recurrence to come back. And so she's on a path to, live a full, happy, healthy life.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say too, I think it's important for women to hear these stories, because that could be you. I know when I went through my second healing journey, I immersed myself in books that had all kinds of healing stories and the scientific reasons behind them, and the emotional, and all these things, because it's encouraging to know if they can do it, why can't I do it? I just need to understand the process.
That's so true. And, you and I have this amazing, amazing privilege to be witness to stories like this all the time.
Yeah.
I know that a quarter of my practice are women with metastatic disease, and they always come into my practice filled with fear, because when you are in the conventional medical world and you have stage 4 disease, what did they tell you, right? They say that we'll give you this drug, it's going to work for this period of time, and you're going to progress, and you're going to die of your disease. And it's not exactly a hope-filled situation. And you and I have this amazing front row seat to these transformational stories. And lest anyone doubt that, just read Radical Remission by Kelly Turner, read Radical Hope. I mean, these are amazing stories of people that some of them did conventional therapy, but all of them worked on their health themselves, worked on the 10, factors that led to their radical remission. And so these stories are everywhere. And one that comes to mind for me is a woman who was in a very bad marriage. And, she got all the conventional treatment and went plant-based and went organic and, tried to work on her sleep and tried to move her body and clean the toxins out of her environment. And ultimately, what she needed to reverse her disease was a husbandectomy. That's what she calls it. So, sometimes you need to change that job. Sometimes you need to move out of that moldy home. Sometimes you need to, do something drastic, like get out of a relationship that is hurting you, and just thinking about that environment that it's creating, right?
Yeah.
And so, going back to what Sharon Still said, where cancer grows, where cancer is invited. And if you are living in a toxic situation, that's what you're going to get, is toxicity. My cutoff for people with new symptoms like back pain or something, hip pain, something that they can't explain, is 2 weeks. Like if you bumped it, if you bruised it, if you something like that, something that's not meaningful, I give you 2 weeks to feel better. And if and when you don't, that's when I start to investigate. I don't let things linger.
Yeah.
What about you? What is your trigger? What is your cutoff?
Pretty much the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it's especially if we know their background and their history, and it's not usual for them to feel that way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It just goes back to your mothering days. Like if your boo-boo isn't better in 2 weeks, it's time to figure out what it is.
Right.
Right. So I had an awesome interview with Dr. William Lee. And I mean, his book, which is on my shelf, Eat to Beat Disease, is brilliant, albeit a little on the longer side and maybe a little too technical for most. But I loved what he was talking about in terms of the role of the microbiome and the importance of nurturing your microbiome. Because so often when people go on a breast cancer journey, they're very focused on the breast And maybe they're thinking about their diet a little bit, but I don't know that most people are making the connection between the importance of the health of your microbiome and your ultimate outcome. Because our microbiome is in constant communication with 70% of our immune system. And ultimately, breast cancer is a failure of the immune system. I mean, we have all these reasons why the immune system is failing, right? We're living in this toxic soup. We're living under tremendously stressful conditions. We're over exercising, we're under exercising, we're eating too much sugar. Like all of these things are immunosuppressants. And unless you have a healthy microbiome, there's really no path to health. I know it's where I start with all of my patients, but some of the statistics that he quoted were really impressive. Eating 5 to 6 grams of fiber a day, which is equal to one pear, that reduces mortality by 30%.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. Now,
Mhm.
I know that that is comparing to someone who is on a low to no fiber diet, but a lot of America is on a low to no fiber diet. Like a lot of people are living on kind of meat alone. And if you're doing that, you literally have no fiber in your diet. He said 50% of our foods can go head to head with drugs. Head to head.
Wow.
That's really impressive. Now
Very.
we've all seen the data around exercise and depression, and we know that exercise is better than any of the drugs that we have on the market for depression. So it shouldn't surprise me, but I guess the most surprising part is that people don't go to it more,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like if this can be a solution, why aren't we using it as a solution? He talked about the importance of avoiding alcohol, processed meats, colorings, flavorings, food additives. And his biggest stressor was that overeating is a huge problem. And we all need to be skipping meals now and again.
Yeah.
So I love his energy. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. And we had a really, really great talk.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So my next speaker was Sylvie Beljanski
Oh, I
from
love her.
yes, she's the COO of the or CEO of the Beljanski Foundation. So what really drew me to her was her personal story. I mean, literally, her father was poisoned by the French government and the powers that be in the medical system in France. He ended up dying, but on his deathbed, he called Sylvie and said, please carry on this legacy. We've seen how these the research I've done, the products I've brought together, plant-based products, um, they can reverse cancer. And so she took the bull by the horns, and now she's continuing her father's legacy. And what impresses me so much about their foundation is that they are doing real research. I mean, with very powerful institutions. They've done research on ovarian and prostate stem cells, cancer stem cells, and they've seen that some of their products literally kills those stem cells and can reverse the aspect. And this next step for them is the research on breast cancer stem cells. And we know that that's a main cause of cancer, breast cancer recurrence. And so I'm so excited and so supportive of the work that they're doing, because that's not being done. Their conventional medicine doesn't even think beyond that. So the successes.
Well, that's because it's not a goal of theirs to cure cancer.
Right.
Which I know that's the very cynical side of me talking. But the truth is that it's not a goal of theirs, because if they were to cure cancer, their business is over. And pharmaceutical companies are in the business of being in business.
Right. Yeah. It's
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not looking to prolong life. They are. That's definitely their goal, is to prolong life, but it's not to cure cancer.
yeah. Yeah. So to definitely listen to her interview and get her book, Winning the War on Cancer. So it's a small little book. But it's a tearjerker, but it's such a great story of persistence and dedication to doing what's right and helping, helping people survive.
Yeah. And especially in the area of ovarian cancer, because there's so little that is effective. And that's multifactorial. First, so many ovarian cancers are diagnosed late because we don't have good diagnostic tools, for good screening tools for ovarian cancer. I am hoping with the judicious use of circulating tumor cells that changes and that we can have a greater impact on that disease. But I'm really encouraged to know that they're seeing some promising results in that area, because again, it is really important. And I too look forward to their data on breast cancer, because we need it.
Yeah.
Right? We need more effective, non-toxic tools. And if someone can use one of these natural agents and get results that are similar to or better than what we're getting with chemotherapy, this is really important work, which is sadly why her father was murdered.
Yes. Yes.
But she is a great lady, and I'm sure it was an awesome interview.
It was really great.
Yeah. And speaking about disruptive technologies, one of my interviews that I did, which maybe more on the technical side of things, but I think probably is one that is of utmost importance for anyone concerned about breast cancer to hear, is my interview with Dr. John Clock. So he is the inventor of QT imaging, and QT imaging is a painless, safe, affordable, non-radiating, highly, highly accurate way to screen for breast cancer. And he's been the head of many startup companies that he has invented disruptive medical equipment. He invented the calcium score test. He invented the virtual colonoscopy. And the National Cancer Institute actually approached him to come up with a solution for MRI, because MRI currently is considered the definitive screening test for the breast. Now, not everyone qualifies for it, obviously, because it's expensive and that kind of thing. It is reserved for screening of certain populations, high-risk populations, women who have already had breast cancer, women who have implants, women with BRCA mutations. But when you're using MRI for screening, there are a host of problems. There's access problems. It's very expensive, and not the least of which, it requires gadolinium. And though we are told that gadolinium is safe, we have been told that many things are safe. That's simply not true, right? We were told that cigarettes are safe.
Right.
So, we have not always received the most accurate information from the people that are in charge of assuring our safety. So the National Cancer Institute gives him $20 million to kind of solve this MRI screening problem. And what he comes up with is actually something that, though it wasn't intended on replacing mammography, it certainly can. So by using circumferential sound waves transmitted through an ionized water bath. This collects 200,000 times more data points than MRI.
Wow.
And creates an image with 40 times the resolution of MRI. So in as little as 4 minutes or as much as 15 minutes, depending on the size of the breast, a woman can safely, comfortably, accurately undergo breast cancer screening. And so this really is going to disrupt the industry. So, I want as many women as possible to know about this because I want them to ask for it. I not only want them to ask for it, I want them to demand it because we should not be doing screening mammogram anymore. And though ultrasound is an option, it does not have nearly the resolution of this. And thermography is an option, but again, thermography is going to miss a lot of cancers because thermography is looking for heat. And some cancers, which are very active, will have that heat signal, but most breast cancers are very slow growing and they're not going to be active on thermography. So thermography for me is just, it's not enough to feel comfortable. But this is really going to disrupt the breast imaging industry as we know it today. So that was a talk that I was really excited about, and I hope that everyone makes sure that they see that one.
Yes, QT imaging. I mean, that's a radical game changer because
and I hope they don't kill them.
Right.
I mean, I really do hope they don't kill them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So another doctor that I interviewed that I really enjoyed was Dr. Devin Stone. Now he's part of the research department for a product called Halen. So Halen is a fermented soy beverage that has been around for over 40 years. It was initially developed in China to help patients who were going through chemotherapy and were developing cachexia. They wanted them to have some good nutrition. So one bottle of Halen contains 25 bushels, 25 bushels of fermented soy in one bottle.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's super, super, I mean, talk about a superfood, super concentrated. And I was introduced to Halen in the early 90s when I was having some issues, some ovarian issues, and cleared everything up beautifully. And we know that soy has gotten a bad rap over the years. And
so
it comes
can you please just dispel all of that nonsense for us, please?
Conventional medicine has instilled this fear in women about their hormones. Oh, you're ER positive or PR positive, so your hormones are driving the cancer. So we have to shut down your hormones and don't go near anything that has plant estrogens in them because it's going to trigger the cancer. But the reality is that these plant estrogens have a very protective effect on those estrogen receptor sites and breast cell sites. And they actually help to balance your hormones and to remove some of those aggressive estrogens in the blood. So this particular product, and I used it during my first and second healing journey. I still use it on a maintenance level. I mean, it's so potent and so powerful, full of probiotics, but the research that is done on it over the last years has just been a game changer. And I've seen many women stage 4 who've added that in their protocol, and it's really made a big difference for them. So, the beauty of what he talks about in very simple terms, so you can understand it, is, how this works and why it's so important, and the advantage to adding this to your protocol. So I really enjoyed that interview, since I've been a proponent of Halen for many, many years. So 30 years now.
Yeah. That's amazing. And we really need to have intelligent conversations around phytoestrogens and soy. I mean, I still get questions every single day. Should I be avoiding soy? Should I be avoiding flax? And it's like on and on and on.
Right.
Should I not eat beans because they have plant estrogens in them? And it's really a shame that we have such a deep misunderstanding about what phytoestrogens or plant estrogens are and what they do. But the conventional medical world has really scared people away from these foods that we know are so beneficial and actually can make a huge difference, as evidenced by your journey, right? And so I'm so glad that that talk is there, and I hope that everyone makes sure to catch that one. My last personal favorite, and again, like there were so many, it was really hard to
If I could
choose.
pick, I know.
It was so hard to choose. But my interview with Dr. Barb McDonald just blew me away. She kind of got called to cancer. Like, she started off her career saying, I'm not going to treat cancer. And everyone who turned up on her doorstep had cancer.
Mm.
And she was like, okay, God, okay, universe, I surrender. I hear you. This is my space. I'm going to own it. And, you know, she talked about the things that most of us talk about and identifying root causes. But she did give us some treatment secrets, which I love to hear this, because so many people are cautioned using certain supplements during treatment because they're told that, oh, that has antioxidant properties, so that's going to cancel out the chemotherapy. And a lot of that is not true. So, for instance, we know with turmeric, even though it's highly anti-inflammatory, it's also a chemosensitizer.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who get turmeric while they're getting chemotherapy actually do better. So she talked about chemo and turmeric. She talked about diet and chemo, because we know from the work at USC with Dr. Walter Longo, we know the work out of El Nutra. I mean, they're not done with their research yet, so they're not as forthright in talking about it as Dr. Longo is. But we know what this data is going to be. And that's that if you have chemo in a fasted state, those cells, those normal cells, are protected, and you're not going to have as many side effects, which means that you're not going to have the fatigue, you're not going to have the nausea, you're not going to need all the support products because your white cells are going to be protected. But your cancer cells, which are dysregulated, are not going to be able to go into that same quiescent state as your normal cells. So they're going to have more of an effect from the chemotherapy. So the data around fasting mimicking diet and how you eat before, during, and after chemo really matters. And getting out of that, no matter what you do, don't lose weight mentality, getting out of that, like, oh, I just had chemo, I'm going to go home and have a bowl of mac and cheese. Like, her talking about how you need to fuel yourself properly through this process is so important. She talked about doxycycline and coenzyme Q. She talked about adriamycin and coenzyme Q. She talked about, if you're on tamoxifen or an AI, the benefits of green tea and vitamin D. And then she talked about what to do during radiation, stopping CoQ10 and using calendula on your gel on your skin. Mm-hmm. So it was really like those things were great. But then she took us through a guided meditation on the 5 elements: earth, metal, fire, water, wood, and what all of those things mean and what they call up for you and bring up for you along your breast cancer journey. And it was just an amazing spiritual experience. It's about the last 20 minutes of the interview. And I'm going to say like everyone has to watch that one because it was just so profoundly transformational.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I really, really loved it. So I'm so excited that this is coming out. The first day is January 16th. It will run through the 22nd. And then I believe we have an encore weekend the following weekend where you can catch any of the episodes that you missed. But more importantly, if you like what you hear and you want to hear it again, I think it's pretty easy and fairly economical to just join Dr. Talks, and then you get access to our summit and other people's summits. So I just know that this is going to be invaluable for people. And I'm so grateful that you joined me on this journey because it would have been almost impossible for me to do it all myself. And I couldn't have picked a better partner.
Oh, well, thank you. I think it's such a great balance. And I think we work well together, and we bring, such different sides of the coin, but we all come to the same place at the same time. So
Yeah.
thank you for working with me. And same thing, if you know other women out there that need this information, please share the link, let other people know, because this is truly life-saving information. So
Yeah.
enjoy
And
it.
can you give your book a plug, please?
Oh, yes. So it's up there, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. And it takes a deep dive into the 7 essential system. And we also have an online course that you can take, How to Survive and Thrive. It combines conventional treatments and natural medicine. So it teaches you, if you're doing chemo, what can you do to offset the effects and make chemo more, more effective against the cancer, some of the things that you discussed. So you can find us at breastcancerconqueror.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put all the links to your book, How to Survive and Thrive. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes. If you are just starting off on your journey, I highly recommend that you read my book, The Smart Person's Guide to Breast Cancer, to answer all of those questions that you're asking so that you can make the best decision for you, make the right plan for you. Because not that you only get one shot at this, but I never want people to make decisions that will affect them forever because they were scared today. And no matter where you are in the process, with very few exception, you have time. You have the time and space to make the decision that is right for you. And what I try to do with my book is to give you all the information that you need to make that decision correctly. So I took all of my years in surgery, working with all the different conventional providers. I gave you all the questions that you need to ask them. And then I gave you some guidelines on what you should be doing for your health while you're making your plan, and then how to follow up afterwards. So make sure you pick up a copy of The Smart Person's Guide to Breast Cancer. If you liked this podcast episode, please like and share it with your friends. I know that you know someone that needs to hear this. So share the podcast, make sure that you sign up for the Breast Cancer Breakthrough Summit. And we are going to do a live Q&A at the end of the summit. So if you get through that summit and you have burning questions, we are going to be there to answer them. So for now, I'm going to say bye. This has been wonderful, and we will see everyone real soon.
Yes, sending you a big healing heart hug, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.